Look, on Kashmir, actually we have done, I think, a good job solving most of it. I think removing Article 370 was step number one. Then restoring growth and economic activity and social justice in Kashmir was step number two. Holding elections, which were done with a very high turnout, was step number three. I think the part we are waiting for is the return of the stolen part of Kashmir, which is on the under illegal Pakistani occupation. When that's done, I assure you, Kashmir solved. You know, look, we actually have, by any standards, a very, very unique relationship. I mean, first of all, we are the only 2 billion plus populated countries in the world. We have, both of us, a very long history. We've had the ups and downs in our history. You have today both countries on an upward trajectory. And here's the challenge. And it so happens we are actually direct neighbors. So the challenge is this, that when any country rises, its balances with the world and with its neighbors obviously change. Now, when two countries of this size, this history, this complexity, this consequence rise broadly in parallel, and obviously they have an interplay with each other, I think the issue is how do you create stable equilibriums and then transition into the next set of equilibriums or next phase of equilibriums. And we want, a stable relationship, but we want a relationship where our interests are respected, where our sensitivities are recognized, where it works for both of us. So I think that is really been the challenge in the relationship. And obviously, for us, because of the border, for us, the management of the border, the assumption for the last 40 years has been that there must be peace and tranquility in the border areas if the relationship is to grow. If the border is unstable or is not peaceful or is not tranquil, obviously it will have consequences on the growth and direction of the relationship. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And I think, and some of it, I must say in all honesty, is not surprising. If you actually tracked it and assume that most of the time, political leaders at least do much of what they promise to do. They do not always succeed, or they do not always get everything they want. But as a general principle, when people, when political forces or political leaders have an agenda, and particularly if it is one which they have developed over a fairly long period of time and have been very articulate, even passionate about it, then I think much of what we have seen and heard over the last few weeks was to be expected. So I'm a little surprised that people are surprised. Now, that said, is it good for India? In many ways, I would say yes. And when I look at our interests and our expectations of the relationship, I think there's a lot of promise we see there. Conceptually, I think we see a president and an administration which, in our parlance, is moving towards multipolarity. And that is something which suits India. It's a fairly complicated process. It's not just like going to a shop and buying something. So given the complexity, to me, it's natural that it would take time.
We were discussing upstairs how this can burn up decades of people's lives.
I'm not sure. I think it should take decades. I mean, with the EU, we are into our third decade. It's not experience I recommend to anybody else. But we would like to accelerate this. I got a clear message. I also met Secretary Reynolds. So I think from Prime Minister Starmer, from Foreign Secretary Lamy, from Secretary Reynolds, I got a consistent message from all of them that the British side is also interested in moving it forward. We had a round last month in February in Delhi when Secretary Reynolds was there. We remain in touch. I had a few points to convey on behalf of my concerned colleagues as well. So I am cautiously optimistic that it will, the pace will quicken. Hard to say when it would come to head, but I certainly, would hope that it doesn't take that long.